Let's begin.
Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome once again to our online meeting for the Eagle Toastmasters. It's wonderful seeing us all today, especially this is going to be our first online meeting for the year. I believe that in this meeting, in this new year, we have our expectations all set, we have our engines burning and running, and this meeting is set to match the enthusiasm that we have for this new year. And like we know, the topic for this meeting is first things first, and we'll be listening to one of our seasoned Toastmasters, TM Oyin Egbeyemi, who will be taking us through the goal setting and planning talk for today. But in the meantime, I would like us to keep our hopes very expectant because we are going to be having fun for this next couple of minutes. You're welcome to the right place. Eagle Toastmasters is set to build us up as better speakers and better leaders. I now hand over to the president of our club, TM Uneku Nwezapu, to take us through the inspirational message for today. TM Uneku.
Right here. Good evening,
Okay.
everyone,
Good evening.
and welcome to Eagle Toastmasters Club once again. My video is coming up shortly. Okay. Good evening and welcome. It's
Good
amazing to
evening.
have everyone here this evening. I'm so thankful for the opportunity to see another year and to continue in this tenure as your president. Thank you for an amazing and an eventful 6 months. So far, we've had so much to celebrate. But first things first, we need to set the tone for the year. And I really like one of the quotes by Martin Luther King Jr., which says that it's always the right time to do what is right. We must use time creatively because time is always ripe to do what is right. I don't know any other quote that can put in perspective what we are about to listen to this evening or what time we are in. We're at the beginning of the year where typically people set goals and objectives for themselves for the year. So this evening, I'm very excited to listen to a seasoned Toastmaster, a past president of Eagle Toastmasters Club, an engineer by profession or by training, but an executive administrator by choice. She has a heart of service and she would be doing justice to a subject matter called goal setting and planning. So before we do all that, if this is the first time you're encountering, before we get into the meat of this evening, if this is the first time you are encountering Eagle Toastmasters Club, I want to welcome you warmly to Nigeria's premier Toastmasters Club. We're 12 years old, and in these 12 years, we have raised leaders as a club. We continue to do so. It is a joy and a privilege. We thoroughly enjoy doing this because the world needs leaders. Eagle Toastmasters Club meets offline every first and second Saturday of every month at Eco Hotel and Suites in Victoria Island, Lagos. Every third Saturday, we meet online. Every third Saturday at 6 o'clock in the evening, we meet online. Today is our first meeting for 2018, and we look forward to having an amazing time. So please make welcome, Toastmaster Oyinda Egbeyemi as she takes us into the next 25 to 30 minutes of goal setting and planning. Gentlemen and ladies, I give you Madam Past President. Please, can you mute everyone?
Gosh. Um, TM Olumide, please, can you mute? TM Olumide?
It's hard to come by. And happy time that we had this.
Oh. Okay.
Only have a Toastmasters at this meeting right now, so I will just go ahead with the presentation. It's basically about goal setting and planning, and really this is usually the time of the year where people kind of reboot and try to start off on a really positive note and hit the ground running. So essentially I'm just going to be taking you all through a few slides sent to me by our able Vice President Education. So these slides are describing goal setting and planning within the Toastmasters context, but I also think that it can be applied to our lives in general. So whatever it is that we have told ourselves we're going to achieve, it might even be over the course of the year or within the entire year, or something that we want to achieve in our lives. It's basically, it's very important that we set a goal. But in setting a goal, it's not enough to just say I am going to do something. You need to do a few things and review a few things to ensure that all your actions are working towards that goal. And all your actions are actually actively working towards that goal. And your goals are actually realistic and they apply directly to your own perspectives in life. So I'm just going to share my screen with you all. I think, okay. And open up the presentation. Can you all see the presentation?
Not yet. It's coming up, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, I have so many tabs open. Okay.
All right. Yes, it's up.
Okay, so welcome again to the presentation on goal setting and planning. Courtesy Toastmasters International. They always give us very good slides that we can work with. So, sorry, just 1 second. I'm just trying to move to the next. Oh, wow. I can't seem to be able to move my slides or do anything.
Okay.
Okay. You know what? I will just open up the presentation on another device. I'm really sorry about this technical issue. I think it might be a problem with my laptop. But I will just talk through the presentations, and please, by all means, I know that this might not be typical of what you're doing during the meetings, but I would also ask the meeting. Okay. All right. So, what is the goal? I know okay, I think we're on with the presentation. Chukudu, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So basically a goal is a specific objective you and your team must achieve. And in the context of this presentation, the team being spoken about is the executive committee of a Toastmasters club. But really a goal is anything that is specific that you have decided to achieve. All right, so we can move on to the next slide. And then, sorry. So now, in order to achieve a goal, we need to have a plan. And what is a plan? A plan is essentially a blueprint for achieving the goal. So if you think about it this way, the goal is like the vision you have when you want to achieve something. It's like where you see yourself or what you see yourself doing. But in order to get there, you need to work out the route. So the plan essentially provides this route to achieving that goal. All the things that you need to do, the resources you need, the people that you might need to get in touch with, basically everything that is contained within that goal has to be within the plan such that you achieve it the way you actually want to and within the time frame that you want to as well. A goal without the plan essentially is just a dream or a wish, because if you don't put any plan into action, then you cannot, there's no way you can achieve a goal because it is not a deliberate, it doesn't, it no longer becomes a deliberate plan or action. It just becomes something that you say you're going to do. Like, I know many people who keep saying that they want to do certain things. Someone at the meeting I went to earlier today was talking about how she went to do a master's, she went to achieve get a master's degree, and someone she had been talking to about going about doing that had been saying all along that she's going to do it, she's going to do it, and 5 years later, she hasn't done it because she did not put a plan into motion towards achieving her own goal of obtaining her master's degree. So for every goal, you have to have a plan, and you have to make sure the plan fits the purpose of the goal. So moving on to the next slide. What are characteristics of goals? We hear these terms all the time when we describe goals. We hear them at Toastmasters meetings because it's almost in our nature to describe things in this way. Goals must be specific. You can't have a goal that is very generic or vague. If you can't pinpoint what your goal is, then it kind of removes the context of the goal itself, and then you can't even really plan towards something that you don't fully understand or you haven't really pinpointed. Secondly, a goal must be measurable. So if you don't have a way of knowing when you have achieved a goal, then what's the point of setting the goal? How do you know when you have actually achieved the goal? For example, I'll give the example of myself. I want to run a marathon, for instance, and I know that a marathon is a certain distance. So if I know that I cannot achieve that distance, then there's no measuring, there's no measuring aspect of my goal. So it could be just me saying I want to run, rather than saying I want to run a marathon. A marathon is 42 kilometers. So that's the measuring bit of the characteristics of the goal. So a goal must also be action oriented. By action oriented, it means that it has to be something that you can work towards, something that requires you to actually make an effort to achieve, something that requires you to make a plan and make a move towards achieving it. It can't be something that you just, sit back and say, okay, this is going to happen, and then I expect it to happen. So for me, given the marathon example again, in order to achieve the goal of running a marathon, it has to the requirement is that I have to run it. So that's the action required to actually achieve that. The next characteristic is realistic. So a goal has to be realistic. If your goal is not realistic, then you are essentially just dreaming about achieving something that you cannot achieve. So again, using this marathon example, if I know that I do not have a flair for running, or my biology doesn't allow me to run, because some people actually are not built to run, then my goal is not exactly realistic. If I know that I don't even have the right shoes, or if I know I don't have access to training, then my goal is not realistic, because I know that because it's not something that falls under the context of my own personality or my own life. Then also another characteristic is time bounded. A goal must be time bounded. Like the example I gave earlier about the lady who said she was going to do a master's and just kept saying she was going to do a master's and kept saying it and saying it and saying it. 5 years down the line, she hadn't done her master's, whereas her colleague had completed hers. If you don't set a timeline to your goal, then you won't be able to, you actually could fall victim of not achieving it at all. You might have the plan, you might have the intention, you might have the action required, but if you just keep going around it and not setting yourself a deadline, then it's almost impossible to achieve it. It shouldn't be, the goal shouldn't be something that's passive. There needs to be a lot of action around it. There needs to be boundaries, there needs to be limits, and it needs to be very concise. So again, giving the marathon example, if I know I want to run a marathon, I know that I need at least 4 months of active training in running, so in order to build the stamina and the endurance to achieve running 42 kilometers. I can't just say I'm going to run a marathon and decide, oh, there's a marathon tomorrow, and I can just go ahead and do it even without having trained. Or I could just keep saying it and never do it. So that's another way to look at it. So implementing goals. So now this slide speaks in terms of working in a team towards achieving a goal. So I would imagine that as a member of the executive committee of Eagle Toastmasters Club, or in any team that you find yourself in, it is extremely important that you involve your team members in setting that goal. So the team leader has majority of this responsibility of setting that goal and involving the members in actually buying into it. Because it's one thing to set a goal, and especially if you're working in a team, there's no way that you would achieve the goal if people don't have the buy-in. They might not have the enthusiasm, they might not have the zeal to reach that achievement that the leader has in mind. So it's very important that we're able to share the goal. Another step in implementing the goal is writing it down. So one of my managers, actually Chukudum knows this person, always told me that if it is not written, then it is not done. It is very important that we record what we plan to do in some way or the other. Sometimes it might be a mental recording, but it's important that we write things down so that we actually start to bring them to reality. If not, if we don't do this, it just becomes something that we talk about and we continue to talk about. So the next step is considering what you must do to achieve the goal. So this is where planning comes in. So you have to look at the goal itself, and then what I always tell people is break it down into every step that you require to achieve your end goal. So I'm sorry, I'm giving my marathon example as the main example because the marathon is in 3 weeks. So what I've done is I set a target on my running application so that I know what I need to do every week, how many miles I need to run every week, how many times I need to do my weight training every week in order to build the strength to achieve that goal without feeling stressed towards the time I reach, towards the deadline I have set for myself. And then the next step is to regularly review progress. So sometimes we set a plan, we have a goal, we set a plan, and things might not happen the way we expect them to happen. Circumstances come and some things happen. It's life. Things will not always go according to the way we plan it. We can't always have we can't always have control over everything that we plan to do. So when these things happen, it's very important to review our progress and just kind of see that where we are is still in line with what our goal is, such that we can always adjust our plan to make sure that we do still meet the goal the way we want it to be done. Now moving on to the next slide where we talk about the planning process. So again, we can't talk about goals without planning because without planning, goals cannot be achieved. So the planning process really reinforces the goals. So in doing the planning itself, you are reminding yourself constantly of what your goals are and how you're going to achieve them. So the next point, please. Okay, so the planning process also makes the leaders or the people who have set the goals more future oriented. So when you're planning to do something, you always, let me speak for myself. I always have this vision of what it would look like. If I'm planning an event, I always have a vision of how it would go, what it would look like, how people would react, how I would feel, how other people would feel. So it kind of makes it more exciting. It makes people look forward to the future, and it kind of just makes people also put their plans into perspective, bearing in mind the future that they have set, the goal that they want to achieve. And planning also makes leaders coordinate decisions. So along the timeline of the plan, there are many decisions that would need to be made. And it's extremely important that these are coordinated in such a way that they lead from one to the next, that they follow a certain sequence, that they follow a certain order such that everything falls in line and gets falls into place so that the goals can be met fully. No part of it will be left behind, no part of it will be underestimated, and everything will just fall into place. And finally, planning ensures efficient use of resources. This is one aspect I find that a lot of people struggle with. Even I struggle with it at work. Without planning, proper planning, you will not be very efficient in your use of resources. So in this instance, examples of resources include money, time itself, people, people's skills, and other maybe third-party resources. So if you plan properly along the lines for every step of your plan, you should have what I would say would are the requirements, the resource requirements, which list out everything that you need to do to achieve each milestone in your plan. So for milestone one, you might need X amount of money. You might need a certain type of expertise. You might need a certain number of meetings. You might need a certain environment. It might be very minute details, but if you do not plan properly, you find that you start to waste resources. If you do not plan your resources for each milestone properly, you find yourself lagging behind and trying to manage the resources that would have been available at some other point, but might not be available at the point during which you need them. So it's extremely important that you ensure that you plan them and you do not waste, because especially in this day and age where people are trying to save and people are trying to be efficient, the use of resources is extremely important. So the 5 steps to planning. Step one, establish your strategies. So this is the very beginning. So why are you setting this goal? What exactly are you trying to do in setting this goal? If you don't understand what the strategy behind the goal is, then there's no point setting the goal. The strategy could just be for the marathon, I would say, for instance, is for me to have run a marathon. That's basically my own strategy because I love running. But from a business point of view, the strategy could be to achieve a certain target for the year, achieve a certain amount of profits for a year. So if you don't establish the strategy behind that goal, then you're just kind of walking without like a compass, without direction. Then you set a timetable. So in doing your planning, like I said, for every step of the plan, you set your milestones, but you also set your timelines. So such that if you haven't achieved something by a certain time, you know that you're running behind, and you would have to adjust your timetable to meet those targets within your plan. If you do not have a timetable, then you're just walking in the dark, and you might fall short of meeting your goal. And then assign responsibilities. For your personal goals, you assign yourself responsibilities because you have to know what you need to do personally to achieve your goals. When working in a team, it's extremely important that you understand that everyone understands the other person's role and responsibilities so that when things need to be done, everybody knows where they fall in place, where they fall in, so that they know exactly what they need to do and how their own role impacts the role of another person. There are many dependencies when it comes to planning. So if you yourself don't achieve your own area of responsibility, it might affect what another person might want to achieve. So an example for Toastmasters is the Distinguished Club program goals. These are broken down into different goal categories. So they are the membership targets, they are the education targets, and other targets. So in order to achieve that goal of the 10 DCP goal, that goal of achieving all 10 of the DCP goals, you need to ensure that everyone is doing their own bits, education-wise, making sure that members of the club are working on their projects to achieve their CC, competent communicator or competent leadership targets. So all of these build up towards that one goal. So it's important that everyone is aware of what they need to do. If anyone falls short of their own responsibilities, there's a likelihood that the whole plan will crumble and the goal will not be met. So, like I said earlier, anticipate obstacles. Things happen, life happens, and things may not go according to plan. So, if for instance, at your club, and at the Toastmasters Club, you're the vice president of education, and there's a certain person that you had on tag that you had in mind to meet the competent communication target within the timeline for the Toastmasters year. And then the person comes to you and says, "Oh, VP education, I am traveling for a few months. I don't know if I'm going to be able to attend Toastmasters meetings where I'm going to be." That in itself presents an obstacle to the club. And that was not part of the plan to begin with. So it's very important that we anticipate things that might happen and then also have a backup plan. So that person may travel, and if you didn't have a backup plan, then you find yourself running around looking for solutions. But if you have a backup plan, someone who could take the person's place, then you'll be able to fall on that plan and still be in line with achieving the goal that you had set out to achieve. So it's very important that we try to be realistic and anticipate anything that could happen that could set us back and look for solutions that we would implement to make sure that we're back on track. And like I just said, modify the plan as necessary. So in looking for those solutions, you are modifying your plan so that you do not fall short of meeting your goals. So in a team working environment, there are a lot of things that go on in terms of the dynamics of how things happen. So participation in setting a goal and working with a team allows people to express their creative ability. So in every role that has been assigned in the team, people are allowed to work on their tasks the way they want to, as long as it meets their own personal objectives. So people can be as creative as they need to be in order to make sure that they meet those objectives. But in being creative, we also need to ensure that we do not veer away from our own objectives. Otherwise, we allow the plan to crumble. So it also allows us to apply problem solving skills because goals are always unique in themselves. We always have to come up with different ways of solving problems, especially when circumstances that we do not anticipate come in. So we need to always think outside the box and think creatively and put our problem solving hats on and make sure that we resolve any issues or any problems concisely and in a way that we will not veer off our plan. Participation also allows us to increase commitments to achieve the established goals. So when it's very beautiful when we have a team of people working together and they all understand what the goals are, what the strategy is, and how everybody has a role to play in achieving all of this. So it's that joint commitment, that joint decision to go to work towards that goal is what makes people excited about achieving it together. It makes people committed to it. It makes people continue to share with one another their experiences in getting things done. It makes people also share their problems in their own various areas and then have people work together towards achieving the goals. So now for the non-Toastmasters in the house, the Distinguished Club program is basically program, the, the program set at the beginning of the year for every Toastmasters club. Every Toastmasters club has certain targets to meet before the end of the Toastmasters year, and this program sets out different targets, education-wise, membership-wise, and club-wise, and it actually helps the club to build itself and to build its people. It helps it helps put things into perspective so that people are not just coming to Toastmasters Club for fun. It helps. It trickles down to the members themselves. It helps members even plan their own goals and helps them to understand how their own role and their own goals feed into the club's goals. So that's what the Distinguished Club program is about. It just helps planning and it helps target setting. So, in conclusion, goal setting plus planning equals a successful leader. If you have a goal and you do not have a plan, then you cannot be successful. You cannot have a plan without having a goal because otherwise you're just working and being busy towards no goal. If you have a goal and you have a plan that would help the goal, that would help achieve the goal, then you're working towards something. You're working towards achieving success in a certain area. This area might be as an executive, a member of the executive committee of the Toastmasters Club, the BCP goals are what the target should be. It could be as an individual Toastmaster, your communication and leadership projects are your goals, but how you achieve them is part of your plan. And as an individual in your everyday life, in all the things that you set out to do, especially at this time of the year where everyone starts to plan and aspire towards doing something. It could be a target at work, it could be even a target with your family. Maybe it could be something as simple as spending more time with your family this year. What do you need to do towards achieving that goal? If you don't have that goal in mind and if you don't have a plan towards achieving that goal, then you cannot be successful in whatever it is you wanted to achieve. So all that said, I hope I've been able to inspire you all and really bring to your own perspective the concept of goal setting and planning towards achieving your goals. So I would like to end the presentation now and pass it back to the moderator to open up questions and any further discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, TM Oyin Damola. This presentation is epitome of your prowess as a student of life. At least for anything I have learned, I've come to understand that there's a very big difference between having a wish, having a goal, and also setting a plan to achieve that goal. I hope that, for example, the example you gave about the lady who is yet to complete her master's, I hope she's able to meet with it because there's this set of inertia that can come in when you have far-reaching goals. Thank you again once more, TMO Indamola. So to all those joining in, this is once again our online Toastmasters meeting. We are welcome. We have been reviewing the concept of setting goals, goal setting and planning. This being our first online meeting, it is expedient that we have our targets and priorities set for the new year, such that we are able to not only achieve the distinguished club goals, but also achieve the goals that we set personally, professionally, amongst other spheres. So without further ado, I now throw the spotlight to the floor. If we have any questions on goal setting, if we have any questions on planning, if we have any questions related to these aspects, let's feel free to ask our resource person in the room. Okay, so welcome Wumi, welcome Ibrahim. Please feel free to ask your questions. Okay, while that is going on, TMO Damola, I have some questions I would like to get clarification on, especially with goal setting. So from the way from the properties or the qualities of a proper goal, you mentioned about being specific, that is specific, measurable, amongst others. Now, what would you say? Because a human being is like we have different aspects to us. We have the family part, we have professional. Would it be out of place to say set goals in these different places? Does it give the impression that you're not being specific enough? Or must it be that once you're setting a goal, it must just be one goal in, one goal in your life, and then once you achieve it, you move to the next goal. So what would you say is your take on goal setting respect to this? Yeah.
If I understand you correctly, you mean are you talking about setting goals in different aspects of your life as opposed to one goal?
Yes.
Okay. Well, because everybody has a different life, everyone is different. And
Mm-hmm.
when we live our life, we have different things that we do. We go to
Okay.
work with our families, we have things like Toastmasters we do on the weekends, we go to our religious environment. So I think for every different aspect of our life, we can set goals. Now, I know that I said that they should be specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time bound. It is important that we ensure that they are that way. Otherwise, we're just going to go through a certain time period without having achieved anything in one area or the other. So I'll say that I'll give an example. I'll just give myself an example as an example. So I want to, in my career, ensure that we make a profit this year. In my personal life, I want to be able to spend more time with my family and my close friends. In my athleticism, I want to, well, athleticism,
Run marathon.
yeah. So I have these different goals in different areas of my life, but it's very important that you, in your subconscious, even if you don't write it down like physically on paper, you always know that in your subconscious, these are things that you want to do. These are goals that you have set in order to become well, I guess in you asking about being a whole person and setting a one goal for yourself, these mini goals kind of form your own overall goal as an individual. Like I want to be in being Oyin, for instance, myself, in being Oyin, these are the goals that I want to achieve this year, and that would make me fulfilled as an individual. So I don't know if that really addresses the meaning you asked about.
Yeah. Okay, so understand if I understand what you say, you're saying it's okay to set goals in the different areas.
Yes.
Okay, and